Fire! Welcome! Thanks for joining me for another edition of Minidisc Monday, and today we're going to look at what is apparently the biggest selling electronica album of all time, and by that I'm referring to this album from Moby. This is Play. So Play was released in 1999 and it had a bit of a slow start. It didn't sell an awful lot worldwide in its first few months or so, maybe even getting on for a year. But once Moby and his record label started licensing all the tracks from this out to TV ads, films, TV soundtracks, etc., this became absolutely massive. Loads of singles on it. Some that were released in different territories, like the US only for instance. Plenty that were released here in the UK as well. Basically, it remains Moby's biggest album, the biggest selling electronica genre album of all time. And it is one that really, when you think of Moby, you think of Play and everything that you remember from Play. All the memorable songs that you would have heard either when they were released as singles, or when you saw the music videos on TV, or of course when you heard them in TV ads and film soundtracks, etc. So before I tell you my thoughts on this album, and I am a Moby collector, I don't get everything that Moby's done, just certain albums of his I've added to my collection, but I'm not a completist on him. But before I let you know my thoughts on the album and the tracks, we'll have a look at the mini disc itself. Can't remember how much this cost me, it was some years ago. Case is in nice condition there. The disc has the artwork on the front, as always. Flip it over and there's the track listing on the back. I might keep this disc out actually. The tracks are numbered on the disc, whereas they're not on the back of the case. And there is a nice little Mute Records logo. This came out on the Mute label, of course. The booklet is nice and glossy. We've got some production notes there. We've got, how many is it? 3 or, no, it's 5 I think altogether. Short essays by Moby, which when I was skimming through them again earlier, they're quite preachy to be honest, but you do get that with Moby. I think he does this in all his sleeve notes, certainly since this era, if not before really, where he just writes what he feels and it can come across a little sanctimonious to be honest. And he's got some quotes from people and the Bible, along with a lot of other religions and stuff here at the back, and a play symbol on the back of the booklet. A very nice little package here. But what do I think of Play? Now, given that I'm a casual fan of Moby's, at the very least, I've got some of his albums. I may get more in the future. I just don't really feel I want a full collection of his. I don't like him quite that enough. But I have to say, this, for me, out of all the albums of his that I actually own right now, as I'm recording this one is his best one, certainly. I think the hype is well justified for Play, to be honest. The tracks are, number 1 is Honey. What a start, what an opener, absolutely brilliant track. Then we move on to Find My Baby. You'll notice throughout this album that there's a lot of blues and gospel samples. It's very heavy on all of those, but it works. And you think, well, maybe some of these things might be a bit samey after a while, but surprisingly not. You know, each track for the most part sounds fresh and different, even though the samples are from quite a limited number of genres really, you know, mainly sort of really old blues and black gospel, things like that. Porcelain is next. Great, love that. Again, you know, so far this album is fantastic, 3 tracks in, and then number 4 continues the ascent really. Why Does My Heart Feel So Bad? That was actually something I owned on CD single back in the day when that came out in, I think it was late 99 or early 2000 here in the UK. So one of my very favourite Moby singles of all time. That. Track 5, South Side, again absolutely amazing. The first, I would say, less than excellent track comes next, Rushing, but then we get back to business with the brilliant body rock, a real sort of big beat kind of sound to it. I remember seeing the video for that on MTV and the subsequent satellite stations around 1999. Another of my very favourite Moby singles comes next, Natural Blues. That is marvellous, love that. Then Machete is number 9. Track number 10 is called 7, but it's basically a very short interlude. That. Track 11, Run On, another well-known track. I mean, every single thing off here was used in some sort of media campaign for advertising or for TV and film. That's why a lot of this sounds really familiar, even though it's the first time I've listened to this album in a long time. I think really the album has hit its peak now really, as everything else on here is good to very good, but not absolutely excellent. If I did have a criticism about Play, it's that at 18 tracks long, it's perhaps a little bit too long. The album only goes for just over an hour, so it doesn't outstay its welcome, but I would say the first half to 2/3 is stronger than the final third really. Down Slow is track 12, and 13, If Things Were Perfect. 14, Ever Loving. 15, Inside. All of these were kind of lesser decent than, you know, the earlier stuff on the album, but still very listenable. A nice ambient techno. Someone described it as sort of gospel techno, which, given that there's some gospel samples dotted around this album, is quite a good description really. Track 16 is Guitar, Flute and String. 17, The Sky Is Broken, and a really good ending, to be honest, My Weakness. Quite a sort of repetitive motif in it, but it just works well as an album closer. So that is Moby Play. As I say, it's a really strong album. I just think some of the tracks towards the end, while they're not bad at all, there isn't, I would say, a bad track on the album, unless you count the really short interludes that are a little bit superfluous. But it's a really strong album overall, and a big recommendation. It's my favourite Moby album. Admittedly, I've not listened to all of his work by any stretch, but I do think that this is excellent. No wonder it became such a big album that it was, mainly thanks to Moby's licensing deals, obviously. But, you know, it got the album and the tracks within it out there to the wider public, and really he hasn't done any better, at least sales wise, and probably not as far as critical reviews are concerned either. This is probably Moby's peak. So thank you all for watching today's Minidisc Monday. Special thanks go to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons. I'm going to go now, and please join me again in a fortnight's time, where I will take another look with you at another album in my Minidisc collection here on Minidisc Monday. Cheers everyone. See ya!